All right, welcome to the Learning Target 9A review. I hope going through this really helps you. I'm going to be very thorough. Please rewind and watch as many parts as you need to. The goal is to get better at these special right triangles, which I know you can do. So the first thing I have here is a red pen, and I'm going to go to what the sides are supposed to be as far as our ratios go. Absolutely ignore the X and the Y in the picture. Think of them as question marks right now. So basically, I'm going to cross them off for you, okay? Don't even look at those. Just look here. Opposite the 45, always X. This is another 45-degree angle. Always X opposite that one. And then this side here, opposite the 90-degree angle, is X root 2. That's what you need to start understanding every single problem of 45, 45, 90. You do that before you even start the problem. Now, you look at the side where you were given a number. We were given 5 as this side. So what we say to ourselves is, this is the simplest type of 45, 45, 90 we can give you. 5 is X. That's what they're telling you. So if this side is 5, that is the X value. So you literally go back and replace any X's you see with the number 5. So I see an X here, I'm replacing it with the number 5. I see an X here, so I'm going to replace it. So the answer is 5 root 2 for that side. Okay? Now, with that mindset, I'm actually going to take you down to number 3 now, because that's another 45, 45, 90. So same idea that I just taught you. Forget that it says N. Forget that it says N. But opposite the 45 is always X. The other 45, X. Actually, if you do that to all of these sides, you would get an X on all of them because it is a square. But look at just this bottom right triangle. Opposite the 45 is X. Opposite the 45 is X. And then opposite this 90-degree angle is X times the square root of 2. Well, if we look back at number 1, the whole goal, I need to stress this as much as I can, the whole goal is to figure out what the X is. Well, the red X was 5 here. That was very straightforward to us. If you look at these two right here, you should be able to tell that the X value, since these have to be equal to each other, the X value is actually just 6 here. Okay? So I could go show you an equation right now, and I will in a second, but that's even making it more complicated than it needs to be. If you look here, we can see that the X value is definitely 6. So now I just go back and I replace all the X's with the number 6. So all of these sides are now 6. And if you just think about this problem, look at a 45, 45, 90. 6, 6, 6 root 2. Just like number 1, 5, 5, 5 root 2. Okay? If you were struggling with that, and if you can't tell that there's a 6 here, please watch this. I'm going to show you over here that if you set those two equal to each other, you can always set the two equal to each other. X root 2 equals 6 root 2. But the first thing we would do to solve for X is divide both sides by the square root of 2. This is not that tough case that I've been talking about in class. All of the root 2's actually cancel. So you get an X value of 6. And remember, that's the entire goal of these problems, is to find out what the X value is. Because once you find the X value, you just plug it back in, so those are all 6's there. Okay? We could have done that on number 1. We could have set 5 equal to X and then solved for X. That just sounds silly because it's already solved for X. We can see what X is there. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to try to scroll down here, and I'm going to keep doing these 45, 45, 90s so we can keep this fresh on our brains. Then we'll do the 30, 60, 90s. If we're looking at number 5, opposite the 4, well, we'll go back, not go too fast. I'm just going to cross off these variables because it's just find the missing sides. So opposite 45 is X, opposite 45 is X, and then the hypotenuse is always X times the square root of 2. These would be x's up here because that's also a 45, 45, 90. Okay, so with that said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to say, hey, what's my x value? Well, it doesn't say 8 root 2. If it said 8 root 2, just like this one up here said 6 root 2, we could easily see the x value, but we can't easily see the x value here. So what we have to do is what I talked about in the last problem. You have to actually take the x root 2 and set it equal to 8. Well, watch now as I solve for x. So now we have x equals 8 times the square root of 2, and the denominator is root 2 times root 2, which is just 2. So x is equal to, outside with outside can cancel here, and that just becomes 4 root 2 over 1. Now this is very important for you to understand. My x value is 4 root 2. Don't overthink it. We already have an 8 here. The whole goal of this problem is to find out what x is so we can just put it on the sides. We literally just found out what x is. X is 4 root 2. So we actually just say 4 root 2 for all the sides. And I'm not going to write them all in there, but all of these sides would be 4 root 2, and the hypotenuse we already knew was 8. Okay, and I'm going to keep going down here because we have one more. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any more of those 45, 45, 90s. So I'm going to stay here and go up to number 2, and we're going to try the 30, 60, 90s. Okay, so I'll stay with red. Okay, and remember that M doesn't matter, these don't matter, they mean absolutely nothing. Okay, but look at the 30-degree angle, which would be right here. If that one's 60, this has to be 30. So forget about the numerical values right now. We're putting in our x's. Opposite the 30, x. Opposite the 60, x times the square root of 3. And then opposite the 90 is 2x. Well, look at the top one. Also opposite, this would be the 30. See how this is going to be a rectangle right here? Well, if this is 60, that's got to be 30. So opposite the 30 is x, and then that leaves a 60-degree angle here. So this one would be x root 3. Now again, I need to stress this. You are literally done. You can just start filling in these x's when you know what x is. That's the whole key. Find out what x is. Well, number 2 is one of the simpler type here. If we set those equal, or if we just think about this, it's telling us x is 6. So I just go back and I'm like, all right, replace this one. Well, I don't have to. They already told me this was 6. Well, if I replace this one with 6, okay, so that's 6 times the square root of 3. So we know that side is 6 root 3. Same deal up here. That's going to be 6 times the square root of 3. If I replace this with 6, it says 2 times 6. Well, I know that 2 times 6 is 12. And I have just found all of the missing sides for that one. Again, it's if they give you that x value, you just fill in the rest with what x is. I really hope this is starting to make sense for you, okay? All right, so opposite 30, get rid of that c. I'm putting an x. This is the 60-degree angle. So instead of thinking about that, I'm thinking about x times the square root of 3. And then opposite the 90 is 2x. Now on the last problem, they gave you the x right straightforward. This one is like a tad bit more difficult. They said, I'm not going to tell you what x is, but I'll tell you what double x is. And if double x is 10, if we think about this, double x is equal to 10, then we know the x value would have to be 5. And again, once I have an x value of 5, boom, got that side. Boom, got this side, 5 root 3. Okay, so those are the two cases that aren't that crazy difficult. Number 6 is a little bit more difficult. So when we look at number 6, let's just set up our ratios again. When I say set up our ratios, what I mean by that is put in the x, x root 3, and 2x. So see if this makes sense. Okay, so doing that, what we have now is what was I given? That side right there. So as you're getting the hang of these, hopefully you're realizing I can't tell what x is right now, so I have to go off and I have to actually find it. So I set x root 3 equal to 33. I divide by root 3. I divide by root 3. Multiply by root 3 over root 3. Don't forget this is x equals 33 root 3 over 3. Cancel these off. And x is equal to 11 root 3. Don't forget, x is equal to 11 root 3. Don't go back here. A lot of kids try to figure stuff out here. I already know that side's 33. If I know that side's 33, I already know that side's 33. You have to find out the unknown sides. Well, if x is 11 root 3, I replace that x with exactly what it's equal to, 11 root 3. This is double x. Well, I'm going to replace that with 2 of those. So 22 root 3. 11 root 3 times 2 is just 22 root 3. All right, last one on this learning target is number 7. What is the perimeter of an equilateral triangle? Boom! Equilateral triangle. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to say to you guys, we've done a lot of these equilateral triangles by now. You should know by now that all we're doing is splitting the equilateral triangle up into a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Because an equilateral triangle has all angles congruent. Well, what's 180 divided by 3? That means each of the angles have to be 60 degrees. Well, if I split the triangle into 2, I now have opposite my 30x, opposite my 60, x root 3, and opposite my 90, 2x. All right, we'll switching this to blue now. What does it tell me? Well, I got to find the perimeter of the triangle. Well, that's easy. I'm going to find the perimeter by taking 3 times whatever my side is. Well, I don't know what the side is now, so I go back to the problem. The height of the triangle is 8 root 3. The height, that's this guy here. So they're telling you this is 8 root 3. Well, there it is. There it is right there. I've set up my triangle perfect. I see what my x value is. Hopefully you are seeing right there. The x value has to be 8. Well, if x is 8, what's 2 times 8? When I plug it in here, I get a 16. Obviously, this is an 8, but that's only one of them. There's the other 8. And then this side is 16. It's an equilateral triangle. 3 sides, all sides are 16. The answer to this problem will be 3 times 16, which is 48 centimeters for the perimeter. All right, I really hope this helped, guys. This was step number 1 to really getting back on track with this stuff. If you're having trouble, please, I will watch you work through these problems in a breakout room. I'll work with you one-on-one. You got to ask for help. But I'm glad you watched the video, and I'm making a smiley face because it makes me happy that you want to get better. All right?